Donald Trump's Secretary of Unnecessary War, Pete Hegseth, is under fire today from a naval commander who is the latest and now one of the most prominent voices to call out his alleged war crime and torpedo the justifications. And coming up next, I have all the sensational details. I'm Dan and welcome to another Occupy Democrats report. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button to get all of our takedowns of Trump and his cabinet of lawlessness. Retired Navy Admiral James Stavridis is a former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, and he set up his appearance on CNN with the words, "The laws of war, intelligence value, and the basic military standards still matter. We need transparency and a real investigation." Watch as he discusses Hegseth's Venezuelan boat bombing with Michael Smerconish and the withholding of a second video, and on the other side he offers his most brutal analysis and what should have happened instead.
I'm trying to analyze all the details from different news reports in the absence, obviously, of the video. So there's the waving report. There's the fact that there's no satellite phone apparent in the hands of these two individuals. There's that account from the Times that the survivors were shirtless, clung to the hole, tried unsuccessfully to flip it back over, then climbed on it and slipped off into the water over and over. And as you well know, Admiral, the law in this circumstance relative to that DOD manual specifically cites shipwreck as an instance where you can't take action.
It does. And neither you nor I can make an informed judgment here because you're showing the only piece of evidence that we can actually look at with our own eyes. To your earlier point, there needs to be not only transparency with the videos, we do need to see that second video that you're describing from various media reports, but we also need to see the transcripts. I want to hear the audio. I'd like to see the JAG who was in the room with Admiral Bradley under oath talk about what he or she said to the Admiral. When I led the campaign against Libya in 2011, I had a JAG next to me essentially every time we dropped a bomb because you want to avoid collateral damage. You want to ensure you don't end up in that cell next to Rodrigo Duterte, the former president of the Philippines, in The Hague. So bottom line, we need to have what lawyers would call a time of discovery here, and then make the judgments without fear or favor as to what happened on that day.
In a sane world, the idea that America needs to investigate its own military for murdering unarmed men who pose no military threat would be shocking. But under the bone-spurred Donald Trump's warped leadership, it's par for the lawless course.
These two individuals may have been waving toward the sky. What do you make of that development?
I think it hurts the case that we had authority to simply kill them while they're floating in the water. Hey, let's back up for 1 minute. Why do we want to hold ourselves to these kind of standards? I think there's a moral imperative to do so. I think there's legal imperatives, Geneva Conventions, laws of war. I keep coming back to the intelligence, Michael. You just laid out beautifully why we ought to stop these drug runners. A pretty good way to start would be, for example, to have captured these two, to have taken the intelligence from them, to have interrogated them. You can then drop a plumb line back to the routes, possibly all the way up to Maduro. All of that is an opportunity to reverse engineer the supply routes that you talk about. And then lastly, you know, as a former commander, and by the way, I was commander of U.S. Southern Command in charge of all these kind of operations for 3 years. I always think about reciprocity. If those were my Navy SEALs floating in the water, I would want them afforded the opportunity to surrender. So I think there's a lot of good reasons we ought to, as you say, pull this one apart. If we did something wrong, admit it, talk about it, and apply it so that we can continue to reverse engineer and kill the drugs, but also do the right thing as a military.
This event really highlights Trump's hollowing out of the Pentagon's guardrails. He has fired the Inspector General and senior JAGs and has punished voices of caution. And he has surrounded himself with yes men who will support his strongman fantasies. But this story isn't going away, and it just might be a turning point that leads to a reckoning. Thank you for watching, and please share your thoughts with a comment below. And remember, when systems and norms are destroyed, renewal and resolve to do better always follows.